Hello, I'm Dr. Dennis Smith of Accident and Injury Chiropractic. The purpose of this video is to educate people as to what actually happens in a whiplash injury. I'm going to describe the time involved and how the average most whiplash injuries occur between 8 and 12 miles per hour. They give you soft tissue injury, and we're going to show you why that happens and what happens during a whiplash injury. So if we look in here, we see the actual representation of what happens in a rear end collision. All right, and what we're most focused on, of course, is the neck of the person being impacted. By far, most whiplash injuries occur on the impact from behind, and you're going to see why after you see the timing of what happens in a whiplash injury. And so what happens upon impact, this impact is being done at, I believe, 8 miles per hour. And so what happens is as the first car impacts on the second car, the actual car in front pitches down in the back and then pitches up in the front. And what happens is in the first 100 milliseconds, what we call phase 1, the head moves abruptly backwards as the body presses against the seat. And then in the second phase, from 100 to 250 milliseconds, the body starts to accelerate forward, the shoulders are slack, and the head starts to go backwards as the body and the car are accelerating rapidly forward. And then what happens is you have an elastic recoil of the seat back, and that is what begins to throw the head forward. The cars actually separate during this time, so the actual impact is over, and what's happened is all of the damage that's happening is happening on the acceleration of the car onto the driver. And then in the final phase, the harness, the shoulder harness, actually holds the shoulders back as the head gets thrown forward. And that's when the person's foot actually goes back on the brake again. So if we look at what happens to the individual during a whiplash injury, we can see that the blue line shows the actual normal curve and the positioning of the brain in the skull. So as the acceleration happens, the car is thrown forward, the head is thrown back. And sometimes, as you can see here, they can actually have a separation of the jaw joint itself. That's why I believe it's about 10% of whiplash injuries will actually have a jaw joint injury. And many times those get undiagnosed because everybody focuses on the neck damage and the whiplash. Then as the head is thrown forward, the brain actually gets thrown inside the skull up, causing high pressure where the brain is encased in the skull. And this will sometimes actually cause what's called a I forgot what it's called, traumatic brain injury. And so this will give patients all kinds of weird symptoms from the whiplash. So let's recap here. If we look here, the back and the torso of the body start to load against the seat. There's high shearing forces caused in the neck itself. The spinal curves straighten, and what they've actually found out is as the head goes back, the actual vertebrae down in here go forward. And so that's why many people after a whiplash will not just have a straightening of their curve, but they'll actually have an S-shaping of their curve. And this leads to degenerative changes over the next 10 to 15 years is what the recent research shows. So if we look at forces that are involved here in this acceleration curve, what happens is during that entire time of the accident, which is what we call here about 300 milliseconds, In other words, the entire time of a motor vehicle accident is only 1/3 of a second. And that's why actually the person that's in the car doesn't have enough time for their brain to register what happens during the accident. And so if we look at this acceleration chart, once there's the impact on the car, at first the car accelerates, but the body's just being pushed against the car, is going against the body's torso. Then the torso starts to catch up with the car, which multiplies that force by 2. And then the head and the neck try to catch up in that last 100 milliseconds to the body and to the car because it's attached, and they actually find that the force exerted on the neck and the head at the end of the impact is 2.5 times the force that's exerted on the car. So an 8-mile-an-hour accident actually causes 22 miles an hour impact on the head and neck. And that's why such low velocity can actually cause soft tissue injury to the occupant of the vehicle. And that's the mechanics of a whiplash injury.